I kind of wanted to get your take on the new player that you guys have added. Handwalla Bwana obviously traded to Nashville. Now you get Medranda. I wanted to know what were your thoughts on the trade and on the player you're getting.
I'll talk about the two older guys behind my left and right shoulder first, Nico, with all due respect. So the background was something that I showed in the PowerPoint today to the players, the young players, because I had, Reed, Baker, Whiting at training, and a couple other young guys coming into our bubble to train with us, train with the first team now that Defiance is done. And it's a rivalry game, and it's a rivalry week. And I asked Ethan, I asked Reed, I asked AOC if they really understand or if they know what it is like to have a rival like Portland. And they gave me various answers. They're young, they don't know any better. And I said, if you don't know, or if you can't figure it out, ask those two guys in the background. That's who you should ask. As far as, Handwalla Bwana is concerned, in Jimmy Medranda, I mean, look, the trade, was going to get made, needed to get made. You guys can debate it all you want. I'm not going to keep a player here who isn't happy or doesn't think his path is, Jordan Morris, all of that sort of stuff. So when Garth was doing the deal with Nashville, there were some certain things, certain deal points. I let them negotiate that. And in return, we get some money and a good player. Now, this player has certainly had some injury history as of late, Nico. He's had a couple of knocks and a significant injury a couple of years ago. But before that, he started fairly consistently for Sporting KC. And so I'd say that it's kind of a reclamation project. We're going to see if we can't use our expert medical teams to get him fit, get him healthy, and then see where he fits in. Now, I said after the game the other day, where is he going to play? How's he going to fit in? I meant what I said. I mean, I see him now playing up a line. He did play up a line earlier in his career. I think Sporting Kansas City was the one that moved him back into a wing back or outside back. So, I mean, we'll see what we get when we have him on the ground. We need to get him healthy. But you watch some of his highlights. You watch some of the highlights of him playing in Kansas City in 16, 17. I mean, he was good young player. So happy to bring him on board, see what he's got.
Jimmy's definitely a quality player, but he definitely comes into a position that there's a lot of, other players at, even at winger. How can you bring that up to your benefit, either moving guys around or as a way of competition? How can you work that to your advantage?
Well, by doing exactly what you just mentioned. I mean, there's competition. I mean, simple. Sometimes getting a new guy in there sparks a little bit of competition. Again, look, I don't know if I need any more competition at left back, Nico. I think I think we got that covered. But it fills a void, because what it does is if he is healthy, if he can contribute this year, then Christian can play back next to JP and Gustav. Then there's a hole to Christian was. Jovan's coming back. Do I play him inverted like Jovan? No, maybe not. But if we need to push, Jordan Morris up the line, two forwards at all, any type of, ideas we have, it just gives us flexibility.
And the last one here, and this is kind of one that I wanted to know, and I want to try to phrase it correctly. I just kind of want to know, what was it about Handwalla Bwana that just didn't quite fit or didn't allow him to perhaps get more minutes or more time in your team?
Well, you'd have to ask Handwalla. I mean, we wanted to keep him. I wanted to keep Handwalla. I couldn't answer that for you.
Fair enough.
I kind of wanted to maybe piggyback off of that a little bit, because you had said that with Alex Roldan and getting him some minutes on Sunday, is that related at all? I mean, knowing that the way that Handwalla felt, that you don't want another kind of young one to get a similar type of feeling. I mean, was there any kind of relation or second thought about maybe getting Alex some more minutes?
Jada, I play the players that deserve a chance to play, that, in that moment, in that game, I believe they can help the squad. Those are the reasons why I play players. I didn't play Alex Roldan because he's thinking about leaving the club. He earned a spot. He's worked hard in training. I thought we could take a few miles off Kelvin's legs, see what Alex can bring, and that was the reason for Alex starting the game.
Okay. And then with Jimmy, though, it sounds like it's going to be a while for him. Do you see him breaking in at all this season, or is it like a next season type of situation?
It's totally up to him, Jada. Look, if he comes in and plays lights out, then why wouldn't I put him on the field? I mean, any coach is going to tell you that if a player comes and he's good or he's better than other players, then he's going to play.
Coach, do you have a sense of how fit he is, how close to, is he healthy? He obviously hasn't played for 8 months. Is that just do you know what was going on there that kept him from playing?
Jeremiah, he is going through individual workouts with our fitness staff. I will be kept updated on those. It's still, I think he's had 2 sessions, so it's too early to tell. Let me see him with the group. Let me see what his fitness level's at. It's going to be a little bit of a process, but he has that, 10-day quarantine program, and then we'll see what we get once he joins the group.
Hey, Brian, just going back to the rivalry and, and messaging the younger players, what is that message in terms of them respecting their opponent, but not getting so much into their opponent, not focusing on the game plan you guys have? Then I have a follow-up about the guys behind you. What's that messaging like to the young guys?
The messaging is the same to the young guys that we've started, that we've continued over the past. Because, look, we've had young guys up here training with the first team. But the young guys have to understand that this is business. This is life. This is a big deal. You're coming to train. You're coming to play with the defending champions. The Seattle Sounders, a very successful franchise, and it matters. And the rivalry games ratchet up, Maz, even one more notch. And the emotion that goes out there, and look, granted, without the fans, there is a little bit of, it's not quite the same as maybe the photos behind me again. But I'm trying to make sure that before I leave, that the legacy of this club, that the young players are going to go work, do everything that we ask of them, and then some, and their knowledge of the history of our club and some of the great rivalries, not just Portland, but Vancouver, and a new rivalry budding with LAFC, and some of the other good battles we've had with Toronto and championship games. They need to learn their history if they expect to reach the standards that we set for our club.
Speaking of history, if I look back to my right, your left, Troy is back there. And then to kind of flip it, there's Pineda. And I think that's Valeri. I mean, talk about just how lucky, I know you're going to give them the credit, which you always do, but just having those kind of players deliver that message about history of the game.
Maz, that is exactly why this photo behind me was part of our pregame PowerPoint. So I always, every pregame, we put up our set pieces, we go through the tactical game plan, we do all of that stuff. And one of the slides was this slide. And I told the young players that if you don't believe me, then go talk to the two assistant coaches that we have on staff that have played in some of these games. Tommy Dutra is very knowledgeable about the Seattle-Portland rivalry. And before Tommy leaves the club, I know he wants to impart all of the passion that he feels, hatred towards Portland. That's what he wants to leave with some of the young guys. So what better example than those two?
Yeah. Thanks, Coach.
Great question, Maz. You're on my number one list.
Thanks.
Coach, the Sounders and Timbers have played some big games over the years. You've been involved in some of the big games. I feel like you've probably even had matches where it's 1-2 in the standings like this. But does this one feel any different? Like you said, there's not going to be fans in the stands. It's a weird season, but like did you like you had to maybe remind players a little bit more because of that this year, or does this feel like every other Sounders Timbers game where there's a lot on the line?
Jeremiah, take the fans, put that aside. It matters to the players. It matters to the staff. It matters to the two organizations. The two heads of the organization, Merritt, Adrian, they're buddies. There's competition, friendly competition there. Gio's a nice guy. I keep telling you guys, Gio's a really nice guy, great coach. He is. But don't think that the handshakes are very easy after we lose. Or don't think that him having to come across to me after we them down there 3-0. Don't think that was easy for him, because it's not. And the players on the field measure themselves against each other all the time in this rivalry. You can go back to the Zach Scott, the Roger Levesques, the Taylor Grahams, the battles we had in the USL days. You can fast forward it to, Gonzo, Jimmy, Dempsey. Too bad Raul's not here. All of the great players that the Seattle Sounders franchise have had on their roster over the years. I'd be willing to bet if you ask them, they'd probably say, yeah, Seattle-Portland was a big rivalry. It was a big deal.
Coach, the Supporters Shield Foundation put out a tweet on Monday that they're holding a meeting and kind of talking to their groups again about the decision to not give out the shield this season. Do you hope that they reconsider, or, what are your you shared your initial thoughts on Sunday, but knowing that they're meeting again, do you hope there's a change?
I haven't changed my thoughts, Jada. I mean, I'll leave that to Alex Cofield and all the smart guys in PR to solve those questions. I mean, I meant what I said. League standings matter because playoff games, home games, they matter. If people want to, do the math, don't do the math. How do you solve it? Jada, there's so many issues that are there with, how this is going, or you could be a purist like Greg Vanny and just say, no, it should be awarded. Just award it. People can go, vote any way they can. I got to focus on a game where we stay in first place against a tough opponent.
Brian, I wanted to know if you had any idea on an arrival for Raul Ruidiaz, and when would you expect him to have his first practice at all? Do you have any information?
I have information, but I'm sure you'll dig it up soon enough, so I'll let you do that. Give you something to do.
Oh, it's like that. Very nice. Okay. Uh, Going back to San Jose's game, I was very curious. I wasn't in the press conference. I wanted to know why it was that only two subs were used, and the first one in the 82nd minute. What was the thought process behind it? And when you look at your bench, when you're trying to look at what could potentially affect the game, just kind of wanted to know your thought process on it.
Yeah. I put the subs in that I thought could make a difference. Obviously, Kelvin coming on late was just because Nuhu was cramping. And, I felt that was the best group of players to get a result in that game.
So there was no reason why maybe some subs might come in earlier in the game to try to maybe change the score. Did you feel like it wasn't necessary?
I just gave you the reason that I left players on the field that I thought could win the game. Simple as that.
Okay.
Hey, Brian, each defense, a team plays against, there's a way to break that down. Is it a little more opportunistic against a team that is a high press to create chances because of that, as opposed to one that's hunkering down in the middle from a creativity perspective?
You're still talking, Maz, about San Jose.
I was talking more in terms of, how Portland plays, how they lay back and then take the opportunities there.
Well, look, Jordan Morris is a big part of our team. And yes, it affects Jordan when, teams sit back. He has less room to maneuver. I mean, I've said that. I think that's true. It's not to say that Jordan's specific movements in the final third aren't effective in certain moments. There was a game last year, I believe, where he got a couple assists. He dribbled around his guy who's one down there, 2-1, something like that. So he can be effective, but you are correct, Maz. It is challenging sometimes when teams bunker in and then, to Gio's credit, they absorb a lot of pressure, but then they're very clinical and very lethal in their counter-attacking movements. So that's the style he elects to play. And it is challenging at times, but, we'll try and unlock them. We'll try and do what we can to figure out ways how to be more goal dangerous than, against San Jose.
So that I'm not translating Spanish incorrectly, maybe I can sneak in a question about Raul. He did post on his stories, like, being in a car and I think at home. So it looks like he's progressing well. I mean, if you disconnect Nico, can you tell me or give an update about Raul?
I actually like Nico. I think he's a great guy. Thank you for that. Thank you for that opportunity to tell everybody what a nice guy I think Nico is, and he's a good reporter. Look, I'm not going to say when Raul is coming into town. I'm not going to say that. What I would say is that he has to follow some protocols or get some testing done when he comes back. And then everybody on the call, everybody in Seattle, the coaching staff, players, and everybody, when it's safe for Raul to come back, we will open the doors and bring him back into our little bubble.
And a follow-up, how do you feel, no, you didn't get, the win on Sunday, but how do you feel that you guys have been, balancing all three of them being gone during this stretch, but, also him?
Well, it's been challenging. I mean, look, when you lose, three experienced, very talented players, it's always hard. I mean, we've always had that problem at this club. Last year we had like 10 or 11 guys missing. So it says something about the ambitions of the club. We always want to have very good players. We always want to, try and get good players to the club. Good players want to come and play for us. In Jimmy's case, he was very excited to join the Sounders. So, it's challenging, Jada, but we just accept it. It's part of the funky rules of FIFA and the international breaks. And now with the whole COVID thing, putting the extra, quarantine periods on at the back end of these trips, it makes it challenging.
Brian, Justin Dillon's played 5 minutes, if I'm not mistaken, this season. How do you keep a guy motivated and without having, the Tacoma Defiance to maybe him getting some extra play time? How do you deal with that with a kid like that, with, an upcoming player like him?
Well, it's challenging. It's challenging, but, we have talks with him. Preki talks to him. I talk to him. We just keep him going. It is unfortunate, again, that due to COVID that we don't have that luxury of getting guys game minutes down at Defiance. I mean, that was the intent. That is still the intent of the club, to have, Defiance be a vehicle where we can take some of the young players that aren't getting minutes for the first team and, get them game minutes. So it's 2020, Nico. There's a lot of weird things. There's a lot of strange, a lot of sad, a lot of, bad things happening in this world right now. And we're just trying to do the best we can.
So, Coach, speaking of Alex Roldan, and other players that have played several positions, or at least 2 positions, is this something that you look into the player, that you see that a player can play both positions, or this is a process that happens naturally?
Well, with Alex, it was a conscious choice to see if he couldn't develop into an attacking right back. That was a conscious choice. What you need, Felipe, is you need buy-in from the players, and you need to make sure that you give him a couple opportunities to play at right back. And so, that's what we're trying to accomplish.
Thank you.
Speaking of Alex, last year when you guys let him go, Garth alluded to the possibility that he really thought Alex was going to make another attempt to come back. He obviously did come back. What did that sort of tell you about him, and what did that, what did you think of that whole situation, that he kind of took it on the chin last year and then decided to come back again when he probably could have gone somewhere else that was maybe easier for him to make a roster?
It shows determination. Shows that he wants to be part of the Seattle Sounders. There's a good storyline there with his brother. And, I know you all saw Mama Roldan's tweets about, her 2 sons playing together on the field at the same time. It's a great storyline. But you are absolutely correct, Jeremiah. Alex could have gone to another MLS team, found a standalone USL team, done well, sharpened his skills on a USL team, come back MLS, expansion, more opportunities. I mean, there's a ton of things that Alex could have done. But what he did is he bared down and, worked hard in preseason and earned a contract, earned a spot on the squad. So kudos to him.
Hey, Brian, as a coach in an organization, how much room do you leave for a player that says, I want out, and I'm done here, goes and then kind of matures and grows and says, hey, you know what? I'd like to come back, in all your years of coaching and as a player, how much room do you have to leave there for him, for any?
Well, I don't know if that's ever happened, Maz. Maybe I'm forgetting someone. Maybe you guys can refresh my memory. But if a guy doesn't want to play for the Seattle freaking Sounders, well, then so be it. That's it's going to happen sometimes.
Fair enough. I've seen it happen here with other teams, but clearly once a player burns that bridge, he's burned the bridge. Fair enough.
Can I ask? I thought Joven was one of those situations. Was he not?
Well, Joven wasn't necessarily, Jada, a situation where he left the club for other than an opportunity to play in Europe. And there's certain things that, happen. Alex could refresh you guys' memory of the players who have gone away and come back to this club because the club is a good one. Most notably Roman Torres, Eric Freeberg, Lamar Nagel. There have been multiple players that have gone on and had success or not success or, played for some other franchises and have come back. And, those are all decisions that we will make in real time. I'm not going to sit here and say, Maz, that Bwana is never going to be allowed to touch Starfire again. That's not what I'm saying. But I certainly want guys like Alex and some of the young guys that are coming up that are going to go and play and fight. And, that's what any coach wants.
Yeah, and I was really, trying to refer just to the process. Thank you. Just not trying to stay on one player. So thank you for that.
No, Handwalla is a great story. I mean, he's a great story. All the stuff that he has overcome in his life. I mean, I can only imagine. So we wish him well.
Brian, go ahead, Jeremiah.
I was going to say, just wondering if you had any updates on Danny Leyva. We saw that he came off the injury report this week. I assume he's not fit, even if he's healthy, but what is his status?
He looks good, Jeremiah. He's bulked up. He's used this time off. Sean Muldoon, our strength and fitness coach, has done a great job of getting Danny bulked up, stronger strength-wise. They do specific exercises to get his movements, his running, more strength through his hips, all that mumbo jumbo that they keep telling me about. So Danny actually looks really good. Probably the only reason, Jeremiah, he's not going to make the bench for tomorrow's game is because he needs to get a couple of more training sessions in. And if we put him on the bench and we don't use him, then he loses a training day. So that's the reason why he wouldn't be on the bench. But the kid looks good. He looks very good.
Brian, Matias Almeyda called Nicolas Lodeiro the best player in the league, basically. It's what he said in his quote. What does that say about him, especially in a game that was so difficult and, the surface of the ground was so awful?
Well, leave the ground out of it. Nico's arguably, some people would argue, the best player in MLS. I mean, you're certainly going to get a bunch of people that would say, nah, come on, it's Vela, it's Higuain, there's a pile of stars in MLS. But for us here in Seattle, we understand what Nico brings to the team, the effort that he shows, the commitment, all of those things. So I think Almeyda, Matias, the way his team operates, they have a belief in a system and they never give up. They're always working for the team. There's no individuals. Well, Nico embodies most of those traits and then some. And then on top of that, he's a good soccer player as well. So I can see why Matias would have high praise for Nico.
Obviously, Nico has been a cornerstone in the success of this team. I agree with you. Arguably probably the most productive player, the signing that MLS has had, bringing the team to cups. How important is it for a player like him to continue here, knowing that, you know, his contract is getting close to ending? How important is it for a franchise to kind of lock down a player that has been such a huge part of their success?
Well, I mean, look, I can answer that in a lot of different ways. I could take it personally and say, I hope that Nico can come to an agreement with the club, because I would love for him to stay with the club till he retires. And I could also say I said the same thing about Osvaldo Alonso. I wanted Ozzy to retire with the club. Zach Scott retired with the club. You know, Clint Dempsey retired with our club. There are a lot of great players that I would love to see end their careers here at the Seattle Sounders. And some make it and some don't, because sometimes it becomes, you know, a business. You reported very well that there's suitors, you know, foreign country, you know, different people that want Nico Lodeiro. And I know that Garth always tells me, he says, well, that happens all the time. Every transfer window, there's rumors about Nico because he is such a tremendous player. So how that all plays out, again, me as a coach, if I put my official cap on, I would say the same thing. I would love if Nico could, you know, end his career here in Seattle.
Thanks, Brian.
Guys, any others before we move Brian over to his next call? Maybe time for one more.
I just want to ask how Brad Smith and Jovan Jones are doing.
Good. You want to talk?
Injury-wise.
Very good. Jada, way to end on a really great question. So today, I'll give you guys a training. Today was competitive. You know, I wanted to get the, you know, team in the right mood for a competitive match tomorrow. But you also had Jovan Jones and Brad Smith working with Chris Cornish, our head trainer. And so there's even little bits of competition in between the two injured guys to see who's going to come back first. So great question. They're pushing each other. Chris is pushing them. You know, all of those little details matter. Happy to see Jovan running around. Happy to see Brad running around on the training pitch. You know, they're getting close.